Hi, I'm Andrea Zundell.
And I'm Carrie Dale, and this is our podcast. Collectively, we spend our days serving our clients and helping them get the keys to their new home. We spend so much time learning, growing, and expanding our knowledge of lending and real estate to better ourselves, and we want to share all of that knowledge here with you.
We will explore everything you need to know about housing and lending. How much of a house can I really afford? What are closing costs? And what the heck is an escrow account?
Do I really need a real estate agent? How can I beat out other buyers in this super competitive market? Is this house priced right? These chats are a collection of key information we all need to get into a new home.
And this is the Key Collection Podcast.
All right, we're finally here. Can you believe it?
Yay!
We've been planning for a while, we've been chatting, we've been prepping, and we're finally here. We're super excited. Hope to have you guys all excited as well. And welcome to our first episode. So today we're going to talk about the home buying process because as new home buyers, you probably have a lot of questions. I know I did. I'm sure Andrea did. And you probably have a lot of fears and apprehensions and might be confused about the steps along the way.
Yeah.
So Andrea and I are going to talk about some of these things, not everything, but some of the things that we think will help guide it and make it easier for you in the process. And we hope you enjoy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's dig in. So someone decides they're interested in buying a house. In your experience, what's the first step that they take?
Oh boy. So they start dreaming, of course, of their perfect dream home, and then they go to Zillow. And once they get to Zillow, they, find the house that they think they want, and they call a realtor. Mm-hmm. And, well, it's not necessarily the best thing. I love it, and I love that when I get that call and you want to come see a house, but there's another thing that has to happen first.
What's that?
You need to see a lender and be pre-approved and come prepared because otherwise you're going to fall in love with a house and you're not going to be ready to go.
Yep. Totally agree. The pre-approval process may not be quite as fun as going and looking at houses and dreaming and envisioning your family there and all of that, but it is a very essential part of the process. Getting pre-approved means that you'll connect with a lender. You're going to complete a loan application. Most lenders have these online, so they're super easy. You'll provide that lender with documentation just to support, all the information that's in the loan application, like pay stubs, bank statements, all of that. And the lender will pull credit and review your loan application, documentation, and ultimately determine the price that you will qualify for.
Yeah, it's so important to get pre-approved. There's no sense in buyers getting their hopes up and buying a home that they can't even afford. Right. I mean, if they haven't been pre-approved, they don't know. They might fall in love with a home that's $500,000 and really they're only going to qualify for $400,000.
Right.
So then you don't want them to be disappointed or discouraged and wasted their time and energy, and it just becomes a frustrating situation.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I get asked a lot, what is the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification?
Yes, that is a good question. And honestly, the terms are used interchangeably often, but in reality, a pre-qualification is a far more general overview. So it involves a loan application, a credit check, and stated income. So, when a client fills out a loan application, they input their information, they input how much money they have, they input how much money they make. And so a pre-qualification is generated off of that. It just gives the basic information, but nothing is necessarily verified. So I have learned that sometimes there are surprises. Sometimes, income may require special treatment. And sometimes people think that they may have more money than they actually do, or, so things like that. So what I have found is that pre-qualifications hold less weight than a pre-approval.
I completely agree. I don't want to go shopping with somebody for a home until they have a pre-approval letter. It's just, I can't write an offer. I can't make a move for them. I can't do anything until that's done.
Yeah.
and I want to get to be able to close escrow with them.
Right. So a buyer who has gone through the pre-approval process is ready to offer on a property. It is completely essential, especially in a competitive market.
Absolutely.
With a pre-approval, I as a lender have done all of my homework up front. I've gotten the loan application, I've run credit, I've reviewed the credit report. But perhaps more importantly, I've also analyzed income. I've checked out bank statements. I see the funds that are there. And basically, I feel really good about the number. So if I send out a pre-approval letter saying that a borrower qualifies for X amount, I feel incredibly confident that we're going to be able to perform on that loan.
Which is huge. So how long does that process take?
Yeah. So it varies and it depends, but typically they can go pretty darn quickly. So, honestly, I could turn a pre-approval in a matter of hours. If a client calls in and they are willing to complete the loan application right away, they're able to provide me with documentation right away, we can get that pre-approval letter out the door within hours. But, sometimes there are more complexities to a scenario. Maybe a client is self-employed and it takes them a little while to dig up tax returns, or maybe we need some other supporting documentation. That could take a little bit longer, but oftentimes it is in the hands of the client because my team is ready to act pretty quickly. So I'd say standard, we can get a pre-approval letter done within 24 hours.
Awesome. So what's the biggest objection you get from buyers in completing a pre-approval?
For sure, having their credit checked. Most people, not most, I would say that there are a lot of people who are concerned about having a hard inquiry. And while I totally understand that, because that tells me that they're being responsible with their credit, the reality is that it is a necessary step in the pre-approval process. We can't get away with just someone telling us what their credit is. We need to verify it, because something I have found is that a lot of people, they'll look at Credit Karma or something like that, and they have an idea of what their credit score is. But when we actually pull a report, that number could be vastly different. So it is very important, because every loan program has a minimum credit score requirement. And so without me knowing the exact number for a FICO score, it's hard for me to really gauge what loan program is best suited for them, and then also what interest rate they would get, because interest rates are largely determined by somebody's credit score.
Okay. So you mentioned loan programs. How does a buyer know what loan program they should get into?
So I review this with clients and I make my best recommendation and explain why. The credit score, as I said, and down payment are some of the primary factors when determining loan programs. So for example, if a client has a credit score under 700 and they intend to put less than 5% down, I'll show a scenario with conventional financing with 3% down. That's the minimum down payment requirement for a first-time home buyer conventionally. And then I'll also show them a scenario with FHA at 3.5% down, which is the minimum down payment requirement for that loan program. And then we'll discuss the differences between the loan programs and determine, what their payment would be, what cash out of pocket would be, and then go over what their comfort level is.
Okay. So you mentioned down payments. Is there any other costs associated with closing?
Yeah. So the down payment requirement totally depends on the loan program. So USDA, VA, those are some loan programs with zero down options. FHA has a minimum down payment of 3.5%. Conventional is 5% down or 3% for a first-time home buyer. And then jumbo products, which is any loan amount over $647,200, is each investor has different down payment requirements. So that can really vary, but it's often 15 to 20% down. But a very important part of your question is about closing costs, because a lot of times people don't realize that they need money on top of their down payment. Mm-hmm. So there are additional costs, and this is something that a first-time buyer for sure needs to be prepared for. So there are lender fees, third-party fees like an appraisal and credit report. There are title and escrow fees. And oftentimes people need to set up an escrow account so that property taxes and insurance can be paid through the mortgage, which requires an upfront payment. So generally speaking, people should prepare for about 2 to 3% of the loan amount to go toward closing costs.
Awesome. Okay, so just as a little side note, do not be scared. It may seem like it's a lot of money, but once you have somebody like Andrea walk you through it and you actually can visually see what those numbers look like, you can realize that it is actually doable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any advice for people getting ready to be pre-approved?
Yes. I would say for sure, get a recommendation from somebody that you trust. There are a lot of lenders, and there's a lot of clamoring for attention, certainly online. And with the biggest investment of your life, you not only want to make sure that you're making a wise financial decision, but you also want to make sure that you're working with a professional that you trust. Communication is incredibly important. Does your lender communicate clearly and promptly with you? Can you ask them questions? Do they communicate with your realtor and your title company? If you have an unresponsive or uncommunicative lender, I want to caution you that the experience is likely to be horrific.
Oh.
Something else to consider is that when buying a house from a seller, it is about honoring a contract, right? There's a closing date that's in place. You are under contract for that date. So you as a buyer make a significant investment up front. You put money on the line in the form of an earnest money deposit. You pay for inspections and appraisal, but you also make an emotional investment. So it's exciting, maybe it's scary, stressful, it's all sorts of emotions. But because of these upfront investments, you really want to make sure you work with somebody that is reputable and somebody that takes the job of getting you home very seriously.
Awesome. I completely agree with all of that.
Cool. So let's say I've done my job. I have a pre-approved buyer, and they're now ready for the fun part. They get to find a realtor and start looking at homes in their price range. So what is your best recommendation for somebody to find a realtor?
Personally, I think it's always best to go off referrals, whether it be your lender referring you or friends or family. But past experience is actually really good because you can hear from the people you know and trust what their experience was. But that's not the only way. You can search, and lots of people do. Yelp is a favorite, and read reviews. And then you need to interview.
Yeah.
You need to call, because even though you may get a referral from your mom and dad, and you might get a referral from Andrea, and you might get a referral from your best friend, well, those might be 3 different people. And you need to find the person that's going to work best with you.
Totally.
So call them, communicate your needs, ask them questions, and get to know them, and then choose.
Yeah. I get asked this a lot, and I have my own opinion, but I would love to hear yours. What's the importance of working with a realtor as opposed to either self-representation or just hopping around from realtor to realtor?
Okay, so working with a realtor, you have somebody who knows the business. They know homes. They know the connections. They know inspectors. They know the process, and they can help you and walk you through it. Versus doing it on your own. You are trusting that a seller is telling you everything you need to know. You are trusting that you know to ask all the right questions. You are hoping that you can get through this easily and probably less expensively, but a lot of times it costs you more in the end.
Right. And then what about shopping around, or not shopping, but hopping around from realtor to realtor? Do you feel like it's really important to choose one and to work with them and to be committed to them?
Yeah. That doesn't mean you can't change. If you start out with one and it's not working for you, or you just don't seem to mesh, okay. But it's a really bad idea to have, myself go show you something, and then have Sally over here show you something, and Joe over here show you something. And the main reason is because as your realtor, I get to know you. and I get to know your needs and your wants and what you're looking for. And if I'm not spending that time with you and Joe sees one house with you and you go, oh gosh, this kitchen was the best kitchen if I could just have this one. But then you saw, a better view with me or a better location. If I don't have all those pieces, I can't help you find the best house, and we might miss it because somebody's not paying attention to what your needs are.
Right. That makes sense. I completely agree with all of that. So can you help explain what exactly you do when you are representing someone?
Sure. It would first start once they have their pre-approval. And I would meet with them, discuss what their needs are, wants are, their must-haves, and then I'd set up a search. And that search could be pretty broad as far as, area and price. And then that search automatically generates an email to them as soon as a listing comes up so that they can be right on it. They can see, things as they come onto the market. And then we go out and see homes. And then we see as many and as far as long as it takes to find that dream home. Yeah. And during that time, like I said earlier, I'm listening to you and I'm figuring out what kind of narrowing down your search so that when I'm looking at homes outside of our time with you, I can call you up and go, hey, this one just came up. Did you notice it? I really think it'd be great. Yeah. Then once we find that dream home, I write your contract. Make sure I coordinate with your lender and get your pre-approval together. Mm-hmm. I turn that in. I then schedule inspections, and I check out with the city for permits, and I do all the inquiring to all the property information that you need to know. And then once inspections are done, I negotiate for you. I've probably already negotiated the price, but now I'm negotiating repairs. And, anything that comes up that's concerning that you want fixed or you don't like. And then, I'm just walking you through each and every step and staying on top of those timelines and working, as a team with the lender. Yeah. And hopefully get you to close and to your new home and keys.
Awesome. Are you ever alerted to homes that are going to be coming on the market prior to them actually going live?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways. You have to be very careful with the way you market things. And, when you have a contract with a seller and that goes in the MLS, I can't just freely tell, again, Sally down the street at this office. But depending on the seller, if the seller said, okay, you can go ahead and let your office know that this is coming, then I do that. So in our staff meetings every week, if we have something we can share, we do. And then on Thursday mornings here in Ashland, we have a Realtor tour. And during that tour, that is the time where the other offices are allowed to tell you of things that are coming up within that 24-hour period. So it's also a time for me to reach out and say, I have a buyer need. So I have a buyer looking for very specific horse property, this kind of house, this location. If you have something, let me know. And that often can lead to being allowed the information, from the seller to say, the seller can and say, yeah, you can call Carrie up and tell her that this is coming. And it brings in some other rules, but yeah.
That seems like a huge leg up to me and a huge advantage to working with a realtor. Mm-hmm. The fact that you could possibly be alerted to a property prior to anyone else.
Yeah.
Especially in a competitive market.
Absolutely. It is really hard right now. And so I've gotten quite a few buyers into homes doing that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So when clients are looking for a new home, what are some of the questions a buyer should be asking?
Number one, is it within my budget?
Yes.
I know you might want to think, I can just look $25,000 over, but in this market right now, you can't because everything is going very close. If it's priced right, very close to listing, if not higher. The other thing are, what are my must-haves? You may have a whole lot of wants, but you're going to have a must-have. I need to be in a certain school district. I want to be within a certain distance of downtown. I want to be rural. Whatever it is, you're going to have those musts. You also need to decide whether you want a move-in ready home or one with a little TLC. Yeah. And if that's important to you, I need to know it, because why on earth would you want to go see that one that needs a little love when you really don't want to do anything. You just want to walk in. And you need to be concerned with health and safety issues, especially when it comes to lending.
Yeah.
I mean,
if an appraisal is happening, you mean? Yeah. Totally.
no flooring is terrible, depending on your loan.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have an FHA loan, right, or a VA loan, they're a little stricter on those kind of things as far as the paint goes and roof goes, and you just need to be aware of those things.
Yeah.
And will the home appraise?
Right.
Okay, so back to the price situation and setting your budget. Some sellers price their homes a little high, and you want to have a good idea of what that home could appraise at. I mean, I'm not an appraiser,
right,
but it is my job to run comps for my buyer and say this is within a range that I feel like it will appraise well.
Yeah.
Or if you're having to offer higher, know that you're not going to end up not appraising, and then what are you going to do then?
Right. Are you going to make up the difference or what exactly? And when you say comps, you're looking at other homes that have sold within that area, that a similar home in size and all of that, right?
Yeah. So not just the ones that have sold, but the ones that are currently on the market, the ones that are pending, the ones that were withdrawn, the ones that expired, because those are all going to be pulled by an appraiser, right? They're going to look at very similar homes to verify and give it a good appraisal.
Yeah. What is your favorite part about being involved in a real estate transaction?
Oh, there's honestly so many, but I think that truly my favorite is helping buyers. But it's when you've been looking for that home, right? And every home is just not quite right, or it's too much, or not bad location, just wrong location for them. And for me, when I see it, like when it comes up on the MLS or somebody's told me about it and I got the chance to see it and I go, oh my gosh, so-and-so needs that house and they need it now. And then when I take them and they go, oh my gosh, this is the house.
Yeah.
That is probably my favorite moment.
Yeah.
Even better if I can get them into contract. But that moment's pretty great.
And I'd imagine even better yet if you hand them the keys at the end.
Yes. But there's a good chance of that if they've gone through all the process, right?
Right.
Okay. So now we know my favorite part.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part?
Gosh, there are a lot of my favorite parts. I mean, for sure, getting to call somebody toward the end of the transaction and let them know that we're clear to close. That's one of my favorite emails that I get from my underwriter is when we've gone through initial underwriting, we've tracked down conditions, we've submitted back to final underwriting, and underwriting signs off on everything and says you're clear to close. That's like music to my ears. So I love that, and I love being able to deliver that message. But of course, at the very end, when it's all said and done, again, it's the lending process can be challenging. I mean, it's a very vulnerable process, and so people really have to trust me and my team. They're trusting us with just sensitive information. There's finances are a private matter, and certainly within our culture, I think that they are. So the fact that somebody trusts us enough with that, like it does mean a lot. And so I love the relationship that's developed throughout the course of the loan, and then being able to get them to the finish line. It's like, I love that sweet satisfaction of like, see, everything that we did, all that pain.
Yep.
It was totally worth it.
So you mentioned clear to close.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean to somebody who doesn't know that term?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what happens at that point?
Yeah, that's a great question. So once we're clear to close, that just means that we are ready to get loan documents drawn. If the final closing disclosure has gone out and been signed by all parties, which is basically that just that itemizes out all of the fees that are associated with the loan. So basically, we're as close to final as we could possibly get at that point. And clear to close is just now we're ready to get those final loan documents drawn for clients to go and sign at the title company and make it all official.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll hear more about escrow and those things in coming up episodes. So that will be, bring some clarity there, because I'm sure there's lots of questions that go along with just that process.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that just about sums up what most first-time homebuyers should be asking along the way. The biggest piece of advice that we can give you is to work with professionals that you trust. They have experience, knowledge, professionalism. They've got all of that to be able to help you through the entire process. And don't be afraid to ask questions along the way. That is key. Never feel like you should be in the dark about that. Your realtor and lender and title company, we're all a part of your team.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed our first episode of the Key Collection. We'll be coming to you once a month and with useful information that we hope will be helpful for you. I know it's fun for us, and we like learning and growing, and so this is kind of a challenge for us too. But we want it to benefit you. Sometimes you'll get just the two of us chatting, and other times we're going to interview someone. So stay tuned. Next month we have escrow. Yeah. And if there's anything that you want to know or you're curious about or you have questions about, let us know and we'll start checking it out and we'll create an episode for you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.